Today, we're looking at a brown ink by Callifolio Sepia. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. And if you like videos like that, I would invite you to subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram, and there's timestamps down below so that if you are in a hurry, you can skip around. But if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Pilot vanishing point with a medium nib, wrote with it for a day, and used it to take the notes for this video. In order to have a standardization in my writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper, although I do use more papers, and those will show up later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Now let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It has some very nice spots of shading throughout. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading throughout it. 7 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading throughout here. 9 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show good color variation, and we do get it in the writing. Tomoe River. No bleeding, minor Tomoe River ghosting, very minor, kind of surprising. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading throughout here, which is, not something I experience a lot on Tomoe River, but there is some very good shading looking at the word brown, the word quick, the word fox. 12 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, just a hair lighter than the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, some very nice shading. Look at the word brown, look at the word fox, nice. 19 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both, the medium shows more color variation than the extra fine, but in the writing, we do see some very nice color variation for both. And Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, spots of shading. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading throughout this writing. 8 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, again, a very nice shading in this writing. 11 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show minor color variation in the left to right, and we do get it, but a lot more in the writing. I agree with Vita. I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we see is this is just a brown. This brown is starting to get into the filter paper right away. It's pushing its way up as very light, and then that's it. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, and that line across the bottom really starting to seep in there. Not as much ink to get away. It does start to push its way up, and we get this sort of pale tone at the top. It's like an off-white tone that appears just at the very top of it, and then from there I actually get to notice it on the first chromatography. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I feel perfectly safe using this in a note-taking situation. Easily readable, very nice. Now, water is lifting only the darkest tones. It's not doing a lot for everything that formed that line across the bottom of the filter paper. Water is all that it took to get this completely out of my pen. Pen Flush does everything that water did and a little bit more. It's starting to break down the ink that's on the paper. But again, I only had to use water with an actual pen. 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it from the paper, but there's no need to use that to clean your pens. I test for viscosity or flow using a thing called a tilt test. I will link how I do that, the video of it, down below or up in the cards. I also then put it onto a standard distribution so it's more easily seen with all of the inks that I've tested. Now, for the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Callifolio Sepia has a viscosity of 1.85, making this a wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those, and for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Callifolio Sepia has an average dry time of 11 seconds, making this a fast dry ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Callifolio Sepia, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a nice purple and chose Private Reserve's Ebony Purple. The second writing sample is done on G-Lalo, Apica CD, and Franklin Christoph paper. Here we're looking at G-Lalo paper. It's a very nice laid paper, but it's a gray tone, just to see kind of what goes on with it. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. Though 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, it does offer some shading. Very nice. Extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, very nice shading. I was actually thinking that the gray might drown it some, it didn't. 3 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub. No feather spread, halo sheen, no real shading here, 6 seconds to dry. Scrubby of the extra fine does show some color variation, a medium shows none, and that's what we got in the writing. Well, Apica CD notebooks. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, it does offer some very nice shading. Extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, much better shading than we even got with the stub. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, still much better shading than we got with the stub. It's very nice here. It's better than we even got with the extra fine. 8 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both and the left to right do show some good color variation, and we do get it in the writing. And last up is Franklin Christoph with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading here, which is important to notice because Franklin Christoph paper tends to be a bit more absorbent. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. Nice shading in the writing. 2 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, still very nice shading in the writing. Look at the word brown, it really stands out. The word fox, it really stands out. Nice. 5 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both don't really show a lot of color variation, but it does show up in the writing. And that is all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Callifolio's Sepia? It's a slightly red-leaning brown that looks great on the page. It shades very well. And something about looking back on my writing that I've done with this ink makes me very proud of what I've written, because the ink just makes it look like it's smart instead of my stupid ramblings that I normally have. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? A wet pen is really going to drown out the shading, but a medium flow broad really is going to make the shading stand out and the color be amazing. If you've made it this far and you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I'm going to remind you to subscribe. Thanks for watching.